Part 1. The transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning, invisible to human detection systems. Inside, Team Lead checked his equipment for the third time. His 6 optical sensors rotated independently, examining each piece of scanning technology with the precision that had made him the Galactic Entertainment Regulatory Commission's top analyst for 47 cycles. All systems functioning within normal parameters, he announced to his team. His translator rendered his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. This should be a routine survey. Preliminary scans indicate a level 4 civilization with standard recreational patterns. Beside him, junior analyst Priya shifted her crystalline form, refracting light in shades of calm blue. She experienced emotions as colors, a trait that made her species valuable for entertainment analysis. Right now, blue meant she was professionally neutral and ready to work. "How long do you estimate for complete cataloging?" asked their data specialist. The tapped his terminal with 3 of his 12 limbs, pulling up preliminary reports. 3 solar rotations, perhaps 4, replied. Humans appear to follow predictable entertainment consumption patterns. Competitive sports, narrative programs viewed on electronic displays, consumption of fermented liquids in social settings. Nothing we haven't documented 1,000 times before. The ship settled into a geosynchronous orbit above a human city. Their cloaking technology was perfect, tested across 1,000,000 worlds. They could observe without interference, catalog without contamination. It was the Commission's primary directive. "First observation site selected," announced. "Small entertainment venue. Current human designation, community theater. Approximately 200 humans gathered inside. Approve the location. Small sample size, contained environment perfect for initial data gathering. Deploy remote sensors. Standard entertainment protocol. Measure dopamine-equivalent responses, catalog behavioral patterns, and document social hierarchies." The sensors, each smaller than a human cell, dispersed through the theater's ventilation system. Within moments, its display filled with data. 200 human life signs, all seated in rows facing a raised platform. The lights in the room dimmed. "Interesting," Priya murmured. "They're voluntarily sitting in darkness." "Typical primate comfort behavior," explained. "Reduced light levels decrease threat awareness, allowing for relaxation, documented in 73% of mammalian species." On the platform, several humans appeared. They wore unusual clothing, different from the audience's standard garments. One human began speaking in elevated tones, addressing another human who responded with exaggerated gestures. "Are they engaged in a mating display?" asked. Adjusted his sensors. Negative, no pheromone elevation, no courtship patterns detected. They appear to be talking, just talking. The team watched in confusion. The humans on stage continued their dialogue, speaking words that made no practical sense. They discussed kings and kingdoms that didn't exist, events that had never happened, relationships that weren't real. Yet the audience sat motionless, their attention fixed on the speakers. "I don't understand the entertainment value," admitted. "There's no competition occurring, no resources being distributed, no physical comedy or skill demonstration." "Perhaps it's a religious ceremony," Priya suggested. Ran comparative scans. Negative. Brain patterns don't match spiritual experiences. The audience is engaged in active cognitive processing but not worship patterns. Then the sensors began registering something unusual. The humans in the audience were exhibiting neurochemical responses, strong ones. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all flooding their systems. But there was no apparent trigger. Nothing was happening to them. They were simply watching other humans pretend to be different humans. "This can't be accurate," said, recalibrating his instruments. "These readings suggest the humans are experiencing profound emotional stimulation. But from what? They're just sitting there." Priya's crystalline form began shifting colors. Blues gave way to purples, then violets, then shades the team had never seen her display. Her empathic sensors were detecting something unusual. "I'm reading emotional resonance," she said quietly. "Complex patterns. The audience is feeling what the performers are expressing, not just observing, experiencing." "That's impossible," countered. "Empathic resonance requires physical contact or chemical exchange in most species. Humans lack telepathic capabilities." But the data didn't lie. When a performer on stage spoke words of sadness, the audience's neurochemistry shifted toward melancholy. When another performer expressed joy, the audience experienced parallel pleasure responses. They were emotionally synchronized with events they knew weren't real, people who didn't actually exist. One performer began speaking with particular intensity. He held a skull in his hands, a human skull, noted with alarm, and contemplated mortality. The words were ancient by human standards, over 400 Earth years old. "To be or not to be," the performer said. The audience leaned forward. Some had moisture forming in their optical organs. Their heart rates elevated, their breathing synchronized. They were experiencing something the Commission's instruments couldn't properly measure because nothing in the galactic database matched it. "Are they under some form of mind control?" asked, concerned. Ran every scan in his arsenal. Negative. No external manipulation detected. This appears to be voluntary. They're choosing to feel these emotions. When the performance ended, the humans stood and struck their hands together repeatedly, creating loud percussive sounds. The performers returned to the stage, and the applause intensified. Sensors detected pure joy in both groups, the performers and the audience, despite the fact that nothing of practical value had been exchanged. The team remained in orbit, reviewing the data in silence. Finally, Priya spoke. "I want to go down there," she said. Her form had stabilized into a deep amber, the color of determination mixed with curiosity. "I need to ask them questions. The sensors aren't telling us what we need to know." "Protocol dictates observation only," reminded her. "Protocol assumes we understand what we're observing," Priya countered. "We don't. Look at these readings." The humans experienced more emotional satisfaction from watching actors pretend for 2 hours than most species experience from their primary entertainment forms. Why? Couldn't answer. In 47 cycles of survey work, he'd never encountered anything he couldn't categorize. Entertainment was simple. Species created diversions to trigger pleasure responses. Specialists performed, populations consumed. Some entertainment was sophisticated, some crude, but the basic pattern remained constant across all documented civilizations. This was different. This was something else entirely. One more observation, he decided. Different venue, different entertainment form. We'll expand the data set before making contact decisions. They moved their observation focus to a human dwelling. Inside, a small human, juvenile, approximately 5 Earth years old, sat at a table with colored wax sticks and paper. No audience, no performers, just the child alone, dragging the colored wax across the paper in random patterns. "Preparatory training," suggested. "Perhaps learning coordination for future specialized work." But the sensors told a different story. The child's neurochemistry blazed with the same patterns they'd seen in the theater audience. Pure, unfiltered joy. The child was experiencing profound satisfaction from making marks on paper. The resulting image was crude, barely recognizable as the house and family the child claimed to be drawing. Yet the child's happiness levels matched those of master craftsmen completing life's work. "This doesn't make sense," muttered. "The child isn't good at this activity. There's no skill demonstration, no competitive element, no audience appreciation. Why the dopamine response?" Priya's colors swirled into patterns of deep fascination. "Because the child is creating," she whispered. "Not consuming, creating." The word hung in the air between them, strange and heavy with implications. Across the galaxy, creation was specialized work. Artists, entertainers, craftsmen, they were professionals who trained for years. Populations consumed their work. That was the natural order, efficient, logical, universal. Except here on Earth, where a 5-year-old child experienced the same joy from crude drawings that professionals felt from masterpieces. Where audiences didn't just consume entertainment but emotionally participated in it. Where humans gathered in small theaters not to witness skill demonstrations, but to feel imaginary emotions about imaginary people. Made a decision that would change everything. Expand the survey parameters. I want observations across all human entertainment forms: music, visual arts, narrative creation, everything. Sample size, 10,000 individuals. 10,000. Fantini twitched in surprise. That's far beyond protocol for a level 4 civilization. I know, said, his optical sensors fixed on the child below, still drawing with unsophisticated joy. But I think we've found something unprecedented, and if I'm right, the Commission needs to know about it. Part 2. The data accumulated over the next 48 Earth hours painted an impossible picture. Sat in the ship's analysis chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing thousands of human activities. Each one, every principle of entertainment economics his training had taught him. In one display, an elderly human female sat in a comfortable chair, manipulating yarn with 2 pointed sticks. The repetitive motion created a fabric structure, inefficient compared to the automated textile production the team had observed in human factories. Yet the woman's neurochemical readings showed deep contentment. She wasn't producing goods for trade. She was creating something called a sweater for my grandson, even though identical items could be purchased in commercial establishments for minimal resources. She's spending hours on an activity that provides no economic advantage, observed, his confusion evident in the rapid tapping of his limbs. The end product has less value than the time invested. She's not measuring value in economics, Priya said softly. Her form glowed with warm golden tones. She's measuring it in something else, something we don't have words for. Another display showed a middle-aged human male in a small room, sitting before an electronic device and typing words. The sensors indicated he'd been engaged in this activity for 3 Earth hours. Analysis of his work revealed he was writing a narrative, a story. But when Priya had infiltrated the human's digital network to investigate further, she discovered he'd been writing stories for 7 years. None had been published. None had generated income. Few had been read by anyone besides the writer himself. Why does he continue? Asked, genuinely baffled. If the purpose is to share narratives with others and that purpose isn't being fulfilled, logical behavior would be to cease the activity. Priya had materialized into her humanoid observation form and gone to the surface the previous night. Disguised as a human female, she'd entered something called a coffee shop and interviewed several humans about their creative activities. Now she played the recorded conversations for her teammates. I write because I have to, one human had told her. It's like, if I don't get the stories out of my head, they pile up and I feel wrong, incomplete. Does that make sense? Another human, a young female who painted, had explained. I'm not very good, I know that. But when I'm painting, I'm not worried about being good. I'm just present, alive. It's when I feel most like myself. A third human, an older male who played guitar on street corners, had said something that had sent Priya's colors into unprecedented patterns. The music doesn't belong to me. It's already out there in the universe. I'm just the instrument it passes through. When I play, I'm not creating. I'm channeling something that wants to exist. Watch these interviews multiple times. The humans spoke of creation in mystical terms, as if it were a biological need like breathing or eating. They described compulsions to create, internal drives that demanded expression regardless of external reward. Run a comparative analysis, he ordered. Cross-reference with all documented species. Search parameters, populations engaging in creative activities without professional designation or economic motivation. The computer processed for several seconds, an eternity by galactic standards. Finally, results appeared. Zero matches found, reported. The behavior pattern is unique to humans. Priya shifted through a spectrum of colors that indicated deep thought. I've been observing human child-rearing practices. It's illuminating. From the earliest age, humans teach their offspring to create. Not just specialized training for gifted individuals, universal instruction. Every child is taught to draw, to sing, to imagine, to play pretend. She displayed recordings from human educational facilities. Small humans, dozens of them, all engaged simultaneously in creative activities. Some painted, some built structures from blocks, some moved their bodies to music, some told stories to each other. The activities had no practical purpose. They weren't being evaluated for skill. They were simply creating, and their joy levels were extraordinary. In most civilizations, creative training is reserved for those who show aptitude, noted. Specialization allows for excellence. These human children, most will never become professional artists. Why waste resources teaching them all? I don't think humans see it as waste, Priya replied. I think they see it as essential. Watch this. She displayed a recording from a human medical facility. A human in professional attire, a doctor, according to database records, spoke to her colleague. Mrs. Depression has worsened. Medication helps, but what really turned things around was when I suggested she return to painting. She used to paint before her children were born. Within 3 weeks of resuming the activity, her mood improved dramatically. Another recording showed a human therapist addressing a patient. You're experiencing what we call burnout. Your job is consuming all your creative energy. I recommend dedicating at least 30 minutes daily to something purely creative, not productive creative, something you do just because it brings you joy. They're treating lack of creativity as a medical condition, said, his antennae rigid with shock. Pulled up more data. The patterns were consistent across human cultures, geographic regions, and economic classes. Humans who engaged regularly in creative activities reported higher life satisfaction. Those prevented from creating experienced increased stress, anxiety, and depression. The human brain, it seemed, required creative output for optimal psychological health. It's a species-wide neurological imperative, concluded. Like social bonding or territorial behavior but specific to humans, their brains are wired to create. Priya displayed one more finding that she discovered during her surface investigation. Look at what they've built. The hologram expanded to show the human internet, a vast digital network connecting billions of humans. Within it, countless platforms existed solely for sharing creative works. Humans posted their paintings, their music, their writing, their crafts. Billions of creative pieces, the vast majority produced by non-professionals. And other humans consumed these creations, providing feedback, encouragement, and appreciation. A grandmother shares photos of quilts she's made, Priya narrated, highlighting examples. Teenagers post songs they've composed in their bedrooms. A retired accountant publishes his fantasy novel. A college student shares her charcoal drawings. They're not selling these works, they're sharing them. Creating and offering their creations to the world simply because the act of sharing brings them joy. Watched a video of a young human male playing a song on piano. The description stated, I just learned this piece after 6 months of practice, still making mistakes but wanted to share my progress. The video had received thousands of encouraging responses from other humans. They celebrate each other's creation, Priya continued. Professional or amateur, skilled or learning, it doesn't matter. The act of creating is valued in itself. Pulled up economic data. This is inefficient on a massive scale. Humans spend billions of hours annually on creative pursuits that generate no economic return. They invest resources in art supplies, musical instruments, writing software, all for personal creation. If these hours were redirected to specialized productivity, they'd be miserable, Priya interrupted, her form flashing with sudden insight. Don't you see? This isn't inefficiency. This is survival strategy. Humans created this drive because it makes them psychologically resilient. A species where every individual is a creator is a species where every individual has an outlet for stress, a source of joy independent of external circumstances, and a means of processing complex emotions. Turn to stare at the planet below, this small blue world that had suddenly become the most interesting place in the galaxy. When humans encounter other species, he said slowly, when they learn of our technologies, our histories, our cultures, they won't just consume that information. They'll create with it. They'll write stories about our worlds, paint images of our species, compose music inspired by our mathematics. They'll take everything we teach them and transform it through their universal creative drive. Is that dangerous? Asked. Priya's form stabilized into a warm rose gold, the color of hope mixed with excitement. I don't think dangerous is the right word. I think unprecedented is more accurate. Humans don't just experience their own creativity, they're voracious consumers of others' creative works. They'll absorb galactic culture and remake it in ways we can't predict. Made his decision. We returned to Commission headquarters immediately. This finding supersedes all other priorities. The Council needs to see this data before first contact protocols are established. Humanity isn't just another level 4 civilization. They're something the galaxy has never encountered. As the ship prepared for departure, took one last look at the planet below. Billions of humans, each one a creator, each one generating joy through the simple act of making something that didn't exist before. He wondered what they would create when they learned they weren't alone in the universe. He suspected the galaxy was about to find out. Part 3. The council chambers of the Galactic Entertainment Regulatory Commission occupied an entire moon orbiting Centrum Prime. Built from crystallized thought matter, the walls displayed the archived entertainment of 10,000 civilizations. Here, the Commission preserved and cataloged every form of joy, leisure, and recreation the galaxy had ever produced. Stood before the assembled council, his presentation prepared, his data multiple times. Behind him, Priya's form shifted through nervous patterns of yellow and green. Had transmitted the full dataset to the council members prior to this meeting, but knew that data alone wouldn't convey what they'd witnessed. Elder Commissioner Thrace occupied the central position. A Venturi who had cataloged entertainment across 10,000 worlds over 600 cycles, Thrace's opinion carried absolute authority. His sensory stalks remained rigid and skeptical as began. Honored council members, my team was dispatched to Earth for routine documentation of a Level 4 civilization's entertainment patterns. What we discovered requires immediate reclassification of humanity and consideration for accelerated contact protocols. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Accelerated contact was rare, reserved for species demonstrating exceptional qualities that would benefit the galactic community. We have identified a species-wide neurological imperative unknown in any previously documented civilization, continued. Humans possess what we term a universal creative drive. Every individual, regardless of age, skill level, or social position, experiences psychological compulsion to engage in creative activities. More significantly, they derive profound satisfaction from the act of creation itself, independent of outcome quality or external recognition. Impossible, stated Commissioner Thrace flatly. Creativity requires specialization. Division of labor is a universal constant among civilized species. You're describing chaos, not culture. Had anticipated this response, Permission to display evidence, Elder Commissioner. Thrace's stalks waved in dismissive agreement. The chamber's walls transformed, displaying the recordings team had gathered. The council watched the theater performance, the child's drawings, the grandmother's knitting, the writer working on unpublished novels. They observed classrooms full of young humans all creating simultaneously. They saw the internet platforms where billions of creative works were shared freely. Note the neurochemical readings, highlighted. These are not trained specialists. This 5-year-old child experiences the same dopamine response from crude drawings that a master artist feels completing a life's work. This accountant writing novels no one will read reports psychological fulfillment equivalent to published authors. The quality is irrelevant. The creation itself generates the joy. Explain the evolutionary advantage, demanded Commissioner Vex, a logical archon whose species prided itself on efficiency. This represents massive resource expenditure with no reproductive or survival benefit. Natural selection should have eliminated such wasteful behavior. Priya stepped forward, her form now a confident amber. May I address the council, team lead? Gestured his approval. The advantage isn't obvious until you examine human psychological resilience, Priya explained. Humans face what they call existential dread, awareness of mortality, cosmic insignificance, and life's inherent meaninglessness. Many species address this through religion or philosophy. Humans use those tools, but they also create. When a human creates something, they assert their existence. They make something that didn't exist before. This provides psychological anchoring that protects against despair. She displayed interviews with humans discussing their creative work. A painter explained, "When I'm painting, I'm not worried about death or paying bills or whether my life matters. I'm just present in the moment, creating." A musician said, "Music saved my life. During my darkest depression, when I couldn't find meaning anywhere else, I could still make songs. Those songs proved I existed, that I could put something new into the world." Furthermore, Priya continued, creativity serves as emotional processing. Humans channel grief, love, anger, and joy into their creations. They write songs about heartbreak. They paint landscapes that reflect their inner peace. They tell stories that explore their fears. Creation is simultaneously expression, therapy, and proof of existence. Commissioner Thrace leaned forward, his skepticism wavering. "You're suggesting humanity evolved creativity as a psychological defense mechanism." "We believe so," confirmed. "But the implications extend far beyond human psychology. Observe what happens when humans encounter new concepts." The display shifted to show human history. Ancient humans had created cave paintings, pottery, music from found objects. When they encountered new materials, metals, dyes, tools, they immediately incorporated them into creative works. When they developed new technologies, printing presses, cameras, computers, within years, sometimes months, these technologies became creative tools. Humans don't just use technology, explained. They create with it. They transform every tool into an instrument of expression. When they developed photography, within a generation it became an art form. When they created computers for calculation, within decades humans were using them to make music, generate images, write stories, design virtual worlds. Added data to the display. Analysis of human internet activity reveals that 37% of their global digital communication involves sharing creative works, not professional entertainment, personal creation. Humans photograph their meals and share the images as tiny artworks. They write short thoughts like poetry. They make videos of themselves singing or dancing and broadcast them to the world. Creation is integrated into their daily communication. "What happens when they learn of other species?" Commissioner Thrace asked quietly, the question everyone had been thinking. Displayed human science fiction, fantasy literature, and speculative art. "They're already creating about us, Elder Commissioner. They've never met alien species, yet they've generated millions of works imagining us. Some depict us as threats, others as allies, others as mysterious and incomprehensible. They're preparing themselves through creation. When humans learn the truth, that alien civilizations exist, that we have real histories, technologies, and cultures, they won't simply study us academically. They'll write stories about our worlds. They'll compose music inspired by our mathematics. They'll paint images of our cities. They'll create games exploring our philosophies. They'll take our facts and transform them through imagination into something new. Priya's form brightened with excitement. I believe humans will become the galaxy's primary source of new entertainment content. Not because they're the most skilled, many species have superior technical abilities, but because every human is a creator. 7 billion individuals, each with the drive to make something that doesn't exist. The sheer volume and diversity of creative output will be unprecedented. They'll also blend our cultures, added. Humans excel at cultural fusion. They encounter new artistic traditions and immediately experiment with combining them. Japanese poetry influenced by Persian mathematics, translated into human language and sung to African rhythms. That's how humans think. When they gain access to galactic culture, the remixing will be exponential. Commissioner Thrace was silent for a long moment. The other council members waited for his judgment. Finally, he spoke. In 600 cycles, I have never encountered a species with this characteristic. I must ask the obvious question. Is this dangerous? A species where every individual creates content without quality control, where anyone can add to the cultural repository regardless of training or talent. This could flood the galaxy with mediocrity. Had considered this concern. Elder Commissioner, humans have a phrase, the signal-to-noise ratio. Yes, universal creativity means much of what humans produce is technically unsophisticated, but it also means the pure volume of output generates more exceptional works than specialized systems. A civilization where only 1% of the population creates will produce fewer masterpieces than one where 100% creates, even if average quality is lower. More importantly, Priya added, humans have developed sophisticated systems for filtering and elevating quality work. They crowdsource curation. If a human creates something exceptional, other humans promote it, share it, celebrate it. The best rises organically while the mediocre simply exists without harm. They've solved the quality control problem through distributed judgment. Commissioner Vex, the logical archon, performed calculations. If humans join the galactic community, and if their creative drive applies to learning about other species, the cultural output could increase galactic entertainment content by orders of magnitude within a single generation. Precisely, confirmed, but there's something else the Council should consider. He displayed the final piece of evidence his team had gathered, recordings of humans teaching each other creative skills. Online videos where experienced humans instructed beginners, community workshops where artists shared techniques freely, forums where writers critiqued each other's work with encouragement and constructive advice. Humans don't just create, explained. They democratize creation. They believe everyone should have access to creative tools and knowledge. They teach freely, share techniques openly, and celebrate others' creative growth. When they encounter galactic species, they'll want to teach us to create as they do. The chamber fell completely silent. The implication was staggering. Humans wouldn't just add to galactic culture, they might transform it entirely by spreading their universal creative drive. Elder Commissioner Thrace rose from his position, a gesture of profound significance. In 600 cycles, I have never recommended accelerated contact based on an entertainment survey, but this discovery supersedes entertainment classification. Humanity represents a unique psychological evolution that could fundamentally alter galactic culture. He turned to address the full council. I propose we grant humanity provisional membership status immediately upon their achievement of faster-than-light capability. Furthermore, I recommend establishing the Commission's first permanent observation and cultural exchange post on Earth. If humanity is going to change the galaxy, we should understand exactly how that transformation occurs. The vote was unanimous. As the council chamber emptied, Priya approached. Her form glowed with satisfaction tinged with anticipation, coral and gold swirling together. "What do you think they'll create first?" she asked. "When humans learn about us, what will their first response be?" Considered the question, cycling through everything he'd learned about humanity. Finally, he answered. "Stories," he said with certainty. "Within hours of first contact, humans will begin writing stories about us. Within days, they'll compose songs. Within weeks, they'll create visual art, games, performances. They'll take the fact of our existence and transform it through every creative medium they possess. They won't be able to help themselves. It's who they are." "The galaxy has no idea what's coming," Priya said, her colors dancing with anticipation. "No," agreed, looking toward Earth in the distance. "But I suspect we're all going to enjoy finding out." On Earth, 7 billion humans went about their daily lives, unaware that the galaxy had noticed them. A child drew pictures of imaginary aliens. A teenager wrote a story about first contact. A composer hummed a melody inspired by thoughts of distant stars. An artist painted a landscape of an invented alien world. They created because they had to, because it brought them joy, because it made them feel alive. They created without knowing that this simple act, this universal human drive to make something from nothing, had just changed the course of galactic history. The galaxy had discovered humanity. But more importantly, humanity was about to discover that the universe was full of new things to create about. And when that happened, nothing would ever be quite the same again.